Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Richard French. We had a shocking start to this Wednesday. That when a gunman opened fire at a practice field for Republican members of the congressional baseball team. And one of those victims, House Majority Whip Steve Scalise, 4 others also. Let's go to Lana Zach right now. She's live in Alexandria, Virginia with more.
We are learning some more details about the 4 victims who were injured in this attack at the ball field right behind me. We understand that one of those victims has been released. The shooter himself is dead, and 2 remain likely in critical condition, including one of the most powerful Republicans in Congress. Tonight, investigators want to know, was he and the others, were they targeted?
Baseball equipment left on the field, scattered remnants of a summer morning interrupted by gunfire. The assailant shooting at least 5 victims, including the Republican whip, Congressman Steve Scalise, who is now in critical condition.
Steve and others, you are deeply in our prayers. We count the minutes until you return.
Partisanship was cast aside in a shared disbelief. Democrats seen here praying for their Republican colleagues.
We are united in our shock. We are united in our anguish. An attack on one of us is an attack on all of us.
Investigators are still trying to determine the motive of the shooter, James T. Hodgkinson of Belleville, Illinois. Just before the shooting began, one congressman was approached by a stranger.
I did have an interaction with someone in the parking lot who asked me if the team practicing was a Democrat or Republican team. I told him they were Republicans. He said, "Okay, thanks."
Moments later, gunshots pierced the air. The shooter at third base, Congressman Scalise, hit on second.
He dragged himself after he was shot from near second base about 10 or 15 yards into the field, just to be, I think, a little further away from the gunman, but he was laying motionless out there.
We had no arms. All we had was bats.
Capitol Hill police on the scene returning fire. Representative Joe Barton's 10-year-old son Jack was also on the field. Members tried to protect him in the dugout.
He had 25 dads. Everybody out there was looking out for him.
And to help you understand the situation here, immediately next to this ball field is a children's playground, and about 12 miles away is the U.S. Capitol. That's where there is that show of determination and strength tonight. They are announcing that that charity baseball game will, in fact, continue as planned tomorrow, with one important difference. Republicans and Democrats will not be wearing separate uniforms. Instead, they will all be wearing LSU jerseys, and that is Representative Scalise's favorite team. Reporting live from the Delray section of Virginia, Lana Zach, ABC News. Back to you.
And for more on this, we now bring in New York Republican Congressman Lee Zeldin from New York. He's joining us on the phone. Thank you for what I can only imagine has been a surreal and very disturbing day. Congressman, give your reaction when you heard the news this morning that a colleague of yours and several others on what was a normal June day were the victims of gunfire.
And Steve Scalise is, was very much looking forward to participating in tomorrow night's congressional baseball game. It's, despite how it might seem that Republicans and Democrats in Washington never get along, and there's nothing that ever brings us together. This is one of many things that happen over the course of the year that bring both sides together to raise money for charity. I was with Steve at dinner just a couple nights back. We were at Secretary Ryan Zinke's office, the new Secretary of the Interior, and I know his Capitol Police detail well, and they are exceptional. They are so good at what they do. So when I first heard, obviously incredibly shocked, I have to say, I still am, and so grateful for the fact that those 2 individuals were with him, because without the 2 of them, because so many members were in that dugout hiding from the gunfire, without those 2 individuals, that suspect would have been able to get closer to that dugout, and I hate to even think what would have been possible. So it's a combination of emotions that we're all feeling here, and just praying so much for all of those who were shot to have a speedy recovery. And, who knows, maybe we can hopefully see Steve back on the baseball field at some point in the future, even though it's not going to be tomorrow night.
And you mentioned how fortuitous it was that a member of the leadership team of the Republican who has a security detail, that those officers were there. But more than just being there, the heroism, by all accounts, Congressman, of not only these two Capitol officers, but then also the Alexandria PD who arrived on the scene minutes later. These guys not only also suffered fire, but they continue to return fire despite it all. I mean, from all descriptions, it can only be described as surreal what these guys did.
It appears that the Alexandria law enforcement, they were there within minutes, and I've heard 3 minutes used to describe how long it took for them to get there and get on the scene and to help. And it made a huge difference. Senator Rand Paul, who was there on the field, said that if not for the presence of our law enforcement in that situation, it would have been a massacre. It from all accounts, it appears that the suspect had a lot of ammunition. I've heard accounts that indicate that there was more than one weapon, and there would have just been defenseless members of Congress just getting in one last practice before a charity game that brings all sides together. So there's no doubt that the law enforcement heroism here saved countless lives, and from a strategic level in our country, because there are shootings, there are shooting deaths that take place all around America every day, and you had, and every life that gets impacted is so incredibly important. This obviously gets a massive amount of attention instantly because you have the majority whip being impacted, but with when you look at how many other members of the House and the Senate were there, it really could have been so much more of a disaster if not for them.
And it also begs the question, we obviously remember what happened to Gabby Giffords, about the presence or lack of security, not just for leadership, but other members of Congress. What's your sense about that, especially in the amped-up times we live in, with the rhetoric and the dialogue and how acrimonious at times, certainly, it plays out? Do you think there should be security attached to lawmakers in the House and Senate, not just leadership?
I have had heightened security this year with me, and other members are dealing with that as well. So I mean, the short answer is not only yes, that there should be, but beyond that, I would say that there is more so than what gets reported or what we'll talk about. Just because in the interests of security, not only are we not publicizing a threat that might come our way, we're also not publicizing what amazing law enforcement does to deal with those threats. They take them all very seriously. We're all getting targeted with a very heightened amount of vitriol and violent threats, including several times the threat of death. 2017 has been a very unique experience for me. I spent 4 years in the state Senate. This is my third year in Congress. And what I have encountered and what others have encountered all across the country is deeply disturbing. And it's okay to disagree. This is the United States of America. We celebrate disagreement, but there is a way to disagree. From that standpoint, whether you are, staunch conservative, you're the fiercest liberal, or anywhere in between, it's an important message that we all need to be on the same page on. Not only should we not be encouraging it and supporting it, but we should all be outspoken and confronting it wherever it lies on any side.
And hopefully tragedies like this at least give us also a little perspective and reality checks about some of that dialogue that you were talking about. Congressman Zeldin, thank you very much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
And as if we needed another reminder, this was not the only major shooting incident today. Disgruntled employee killed 3 people, then himself, at a UPS facility in San Francisco as the violence continues. Business on Capitol Hill, it came to a standstill that after the shooting in Alexandria. It includes the postponement of a hearing for a bill that would make it easier for people to buy gun silencers. Now, people are wondering whether the shooting of a congressman will cause lawmakers to come together and deal with the gun issue. I won't hold my collective breath on that, but nonetheless, it'll be one of the debates that we'll have in this country. All right, when we come back after this break, I'm going to bring the legal panel in. A lot to get into, from everything from developments on Capitol Hill. We saw the Jeff Sessions testimony before Congress yesterday. Many times, he just wouldn't answer the questions. The question is, not just in this, but in other hearings where Congress is doing their constitutional job, when can and can't they make somebody answer questions? And as it relates to the Russia probe, what happens if Mr. Mueller's got some questions for the Attorney General? Will he have to answer those? That and so much more coming up over the next 15 minutes.